Okay, for our tech lesson, we were to go to Brayfoot School to work with Mr. Samuelson's grade 5 class. He had 26 students, pretty even composition of boys and girls, and we were also joining two other classes on the field trip that were grades 3s and 4. This is a project they've been doing for the last few years to work on restoring different parts of Mount Doug Creek, which is a salmon bearing or salmon spawning stream. The available resources we had were 3 iPads from UVic, and each teacher had an iPad as well. And the students seemed somewhat familiar with iPads, although for this actual portion of our lesson, we were the ones using the technology, and the students were focused on the labor of restoring the creek.
The teacher, Mr. Samuelson, was really keen on getting the students to learn why the trees were being planted there, and he was telling them that the intent was to hold up the bank and allow the river to contain more fish, and particularly salmon, to run through the river.
The technology, he just wanted some photos to document the experience for the students, particularly done by us so that the students could just focus on restoring the creek. And then the plan was for us to come back later for a second lesson to work on incorporating the photos of their field trip into an iMovie or a slideshow to help the students later on display their work to their families and friends.
For the iPads, it was pretty straightforward, taking the pictures, as both myself, Garrett, and Ayesha were very familiar with the application of the camera on the iPad, and then we uploaded it to the Google Drive, and then in the future we are going to create an iMovie with the students using the pictures that we took on that day.
Yeah, we believe that some of the students are fairly familiar with iMovie, but it would probably need to brush up on them on how to do it, and then just try and work with the students to push themselves to make each of their videos and slideshows very personal, and they can really put their own style to it to make it unique for them. There wasn't too much setup required to prepare the hardware. Most iPads come with photo capabilities built into them. The main challenge was just trying to arrange a time with Mr. Samuelson that worked for us and with the park staff as well as having a nice enough day to actually go into the woods and work with the dirt and the trees and shrubs.
Some of the challenges, like Garrett was saying, was coordinating a time with both the Parks Rec department and Mr. Samuelson to set up a time where that would all work well. Something that we would do differently next time would just be, trying to organize possibly an earlier time, or to just have everybody communicate a little bit better with each other to get, like I was saying, an earlier time to have everyone go out and plant the trees and get the pictures.
And then we'd be hoping as well, because right now we're struggling again to try and find a second lesson that will work for ourselves and Mr. Samuelson to go in and create the iMovies and slideshows with his class. So ideally next time we could set up a longer time right away so that we could go do the field trip and then immediately after come back and work with the photos that we had gathered while the memory was still fresh in the students' minds, to then incorporate the evidence into a movie or a slideshow for the students. I think that just by having a week or two after the field trip, it might be hard to just remind the students again of what happened, and there's so many other things going on in their heads, especially as they approach Christmas time.
With the students' learning experiences, I noticed that a lot of them were really good with labeling or describing what type of plant that they're planting. It really helped to learn about, how a shrub or a tree helps hold in the bank of a near a river by actually going outside and planting the trees.
Which we thought would be cool too, because then hopefully, if there was a slideshow, the students could, with some of the photos we had of the different trees or shrubs, the students could actually, in their slideshow, label which tree there was, and why certain trees and shrubs were planted in different areas and heights on the bank, just due to the natural habitat of some of the trees.
Something that surprised me was the amount of kids that were there and how they were able to organize, allowing each student to feel like they were a part of the program. Maybe something that would work either differently or better would be to have smaller class sizes to allow some of the kids maybe not to wander off, or for everyone to feel like they're more a part of the learning experience.
And I think one of the challenges for us going ahead planning the next lesson is just trying to determine how many iPads we can have, and then how to coordinate the students with potentially a limited number of iPads, to have effective groups where each student is still getting a quality learning experience of working with the iPad and with the iMovie or slideshow program, and getting their input on which photos to use valued as well. Because if we start having 4 or 5 students for each iPad, quite often I would imagine that 1 or 2 students would take over, and the other 3 students are just standing around watching. But those are all things that we're going to try and work on. We look forward to this next part of our tech lesson with Mr. Samuelson and Braefoot.